Today, we are talking about one of the most brilliant and, frankly, courageous minds of the 20th century, Edith Stein. Her story is this incredible, relentless search for truth. It's a journey that took her from the absolute heights of philosophy to the deepest, darkest depths of human suffering, all while the world was basically tearing itself apart. So let's get into it. This is a story of a woman who just never, ever stopped searching. My longing for truth was a single prayer. Just let that sink in for a second. These are her own words, and they really are the key to her entire life. This one sentence tells you that for her, this wasn't just some academic game. It was a deep, profound spiritual quest. It was the engine, the North Star, that drove every single decision she ever made. So, where does a journey like this even start? Well, it begins in a world steeped in faith. A world she would actually leave behind, at least for a while, for pure, cold, hard reason. Edith was born into a deeply devout Jewish family, but as a teenager, she made a pretty radical choice. She completely walked away from her faith and became a committed atheist. Now, this is really important because her later return to faith wasn't just, going back to what she knew as a kid. It was a brand new discovery, one that was forged in some serious intellectual fire. This search for answers led her to university, where she pretty quickly realized her true calling was philosophy. Okay, so this move was a massive deal. Transferring to study with Edmund Husserl, that's kind of like a young physicist today getting a chance to go work with the top Nobel laureate on the planet. Husserl was the founder of this huge philosophical movement called phenomenology, which, in simple terms, is the super rigorous study of consciousness and experience itself. And Edith Stein? Well, she was about to become his star pupil. Right, so her intellectual quest is taking off, but it's about to collide head-on with the brutal reality of the First World War. And that collision is what led to her first huge philosophical breakthrough. Instead of just staying in the university's ivory tower, Stein volunteered to be a Red Cross nurse. She didn't get an easy assignment either. She was in a field hospital, in a typhus ward, literally surrounded by intense suffering and death, day in and day out. This was no longer some abstract philosophical puzzle. This was a raw, unfiltered crash course in what it means to be human. And all that experience, it fed directly into her doctoral thesis. The question she decided to tackle was just massive, the problem of empathy. Think about it. How do I really know what you're feeling? How can my mind genuinely connect with your experience? At a time when a lot of philosophy was just abstract logic, she was diving into the messy, real, and absolutely essential question of what connects us all. And she just completely nailed it. Her thesis was so revolutionary, so groundbreaking, that she was awarded her doctorate summa cum laude. That's the highest possible honor you can get. At that very moment, Edith Stein was, without a doubt, one of the brightest and most original philosophical minds in all of Europe. So she's got her doctorate, she's a certified genius. The next step in her career seems obvious. But she was about to slam right into a wall that her intellect, no matter how powerful it was, just couldn't break through. Of course, her goal was a professorship. It was the only logical path for a thinker of her stature. With her mind and a glowing recommendation from her famous mentor, Husserl, it should have been a slam dunk. But there was this unwritten rule, an absolute barrier in the academic world that was standing right in her way. And this quote from her own mentor says it all. Should academic careers be opened up to ladies? Just let that sink in. Back then, German universities were a man's world. A woman becoming a full professor, it was basically unheard of. Husserl knew she was his very best candidate, but simply because she was a woman, the door was slammed shut, period. So, blocked from the academic life she'd worked so hard for, her relentless search for truth had to go somewhere else. It started to turn inward, and that led to a totally shocking and profound transformation. This timeline just shows you how fast everything changed. In 1917, she's at the absolute peak of her academic career. By 1920, that whole path is blocked. Then, in 1921, she stumbles upon a single book, and that one encounter changes everything. Just a year later, she's baptized. The brilliant atheist philosopher was on her way to becoming a Catholic mystic. And this is the moment it all turned. She was visiting a friend, and she just happened to pick up the autobiography of a 16th century mystic, St. Teresa of Avila. She starts reading, and she doesn't stop. She reads it all in a single night. As the sun came up, she closed the book and said to herself, "This is the truth." For a mind that had spent its entire life searching for answers in logic and reason, this was it. The truth she found wasn't in an argument, it was in a life. Okay, so now we enter the final phase of her life. And this is where Edith Stein merges her powerhouse intellect with her newfound faith, and she produces her most profound and maybe her most challenging work ever. She didn't just convert, in name only. She went all in. She dedicated her entire being to this newfound truth, eventually becoming a Carmelite nun. And she took a new name, Sister Teresa Blessed of the Cross. That name was basically a mission statement for her new focus, both philosophically and spiritually. Her final great work was called Kreuzeswissenschaft, which translates to the science of the cross. Now, this wasn't just theology, it was really the culmination of her entire life's work. Her argument was that the deepest truths, the really important ones, aren't found in books or in logic. They're found in the lived experience of suffering. For her, real knowledge, especially of God, required empathy with the suffering at the very heart of the world. And her own words make it crystal clear. This idea connects everything. Her work on empathy, her experience in the war, being rejected by the university, it all comes together here. Truth wasn't something you just think about. It was something you had to live through, especially through the hard times. And tragically, she would be forced to live out this philosophy in the most extreme way imaginable. As a Jewish-born Catholic nun, she was a direct target for the Nazis. She was smuggled into the Netherlands to keep her safe, but she was ultimately arrested by the Gestapo, and she was murdered in the gas chambers at Auschwitz. These are words from her last will, which she wrote before she was arrested. Even staring into the absolute horror of the Nazi regime, she didn't see her fate as some meaningless tragedy. She saw it as her participation in her science of the cross, a sacrifice she was willing to offer for a world that had been lost to darkness. Which leaves us with this question. Edith Stein faced sexism that blocked her career. She faced the horrors of war. And in the end, she faced one of the most evil regimes in human history. And none of it stopped her search. It really makes you wonder, is that quest for truth just an unstoppable force? Maybe the most powerful drive we have?
Prayer to Saint Teresa Benedicta of the Cross. O Saint Teresa Benedicta of the Cross, you sought truth with a fearless heart, and found it in the mystery of Christ's love. Scholar, seeker, sister, martyr, your life became a flame of wisdom and surrender. Teach us to listen deeply, to embrace the cross with courage, and to see God's presence in every soul. In moments of silence and suffering, may your example guide us to peace. Intercede for us, that we may walk with integrity, love with compassion, and serve with joy. May our lives, like yours, reflect the light of Christ in a world longing for hope. Amen.